God damn, Monster Hunter Rise is a good game. I had my reservations about going back to the Switch after the glory that is Monster Hunter World, because so much of what that game did, and a lot of the streamlining that it introduced, felt as though it was linked to the platforms it was on, and we all know that the Switch simply doesn't have that much raw power. Having jumped from PS4 to PC with World, the idea of putting all of that good monster hunting back onto a handheld device just wasn't something I wanted to do. However, Rise has absolutely crushed it, and I don't think it's unreasonable in the slightest to say that this is the best Monster Hunter it has ever been. Monster Hunter Rise has you playing as a newly qualified hunter. Your goal is to prepare for a rampage, a catastrophic event where monsters basically gather up their forces and then attack your village, Kamura. Kamura Village and a lot of the game itself has a lot of nods to Japanese history, myths and general style too. One of the early monsters is incredibly reminiscent of the Kappa, and your instructor is basically a ninja. It's nice to journey around an area and world with a bit more of an authentic feel to it, as World often felt placeless. The lack of place was probably because you were well away from any proper home invading in other places, but the fact that Kamura and the areas around it feel a bit more linked and cohesive is one of the smaller wins of Rise. Rise adds in a few new mechanics, and they're absolutely incredible. The first of these is the wire bugs, which allow you to zip around a little bit more than before. Hunters can effectively climb walls, clear large gaps, and even perform incredible mid-air dodges. They come into play in the combat as well, and not just because of the enhanced dodging. Every weapon has a similar moveset to the ones introduced in World, but the key differences here are the new Silkbind abilities that grant special effects depending on the weapon you're using and which skill you use. What's really cool about this is that you actually unlock new abilities to switch some of the skills out as you make your way through the game, which makes the weapons feel more personal than ever before. On top of looking cool though, the wirebug attacks also deal a special kind of damage to monsters, and if you do enough of this kind of damage to them, then you'll be able to mount them. If you played Iceborne, you'll have had a glimpse of this ability thanks to the Clutch Claw, but Rise lets you not only jump on these beasts, but even to get them to attack if you want them to. You can use a light attack, strong attack, dodge, or even send whatever you're riding into a wall to deal damage to it. Plus, if you land enough attacks, you'll be able to unleash massive special attacks. You can think of this a bit like the Turf Wars from World, except you get to take a very active part in them. The other new addition is Rampage mode, which has you setting up defences in a tower defence inspired take on Monster Hunter. This adds a nice little change of pace where the monsters will come to you, but you'll need to be able to stand your ground to fight them off. Alongside the Palicos, you now have Palamutes, your dog companions. These actually play into Monster Hunter Rise's improvements to core gameplay systems. The Palamutes help you fight, but they're just as useful as transportation. It makes traversing the environment much easier, reducing the time it takes to get into the action. It also helps trim down the game to feel perfect for the Switch's portability, particularly in gathering quests. When you consider these new additions on top of the solid foundation of Monster Hunter World, you're left with what is the best Monster Hunter game around. This game is as close to perfect as we've had yet, and assuming it gets a lot of post-launch support, we're in for an incredibly exciting new era of Monster Hunter, and one that brings back some of the bombastic absurdity that World omitted.